Hi, welcome to this video about version 2 of my LoRa block editing nodes for Z-Image, Flux, WAN 2.2, Qwen, SDXL, and SD 1.5. This demo is with Z-Image. As you can see here, I have, for those who are new to it, what this node here is a node which allows you to tweak the different layers of a given LoRa. Now, in this workflow, which is for Z-Image, you can see here I've got an analyzer, which is analyzing which layers of this LoRa have the most effect. And also you have here, I've got my standard diffusion loader, my prompt. I have a second LoRa here, which is for a character called Glara H, which is off to the left in the workflow with some credits and links to where you can download that if you want to create this exact scenario when you're testing this workflow in the node pack. There's also a horror LoRa loaded here, at its standard default settings with all the layers set to 1. So that's exactly the same as using it in the normal loader. The color coding here shows that these layers, these red ones and orange ones effectively have the most data in them as per this graph here. Now, with the image generated, you can see it's a pretty horrific result. I'm going to turn off this layer and I'm going to hit Q prompt. And we're at 73% K sampler. And here we're getting there. And VA decode. We'll get there. It's taking its sweet time. I think it's because I'm using OBS at the same time. Right. You can see Glara H is supposed to look like that without the 20s horror node, 20s horror LoRa. So what I'm going to do is, what I have discovered from Z-Image is, and I have presets here, but I actually go face priority. A lot of the time the face data seems to be in these layers. Now I'm actually going to go back to them all turned on, and these layers in this 20s horror LoRa that you see here, I'm just going to scale them back a bit. I'm not being particularly precise because I want this demo to be quite organic, and I'm going to hit Q prompt, and we will see that because we've pulled back those face layers, it means they're going to conflict a little bit less than they were. So it's definitely improved versus the original where you could barely make out a face. So let's just drag them up a bit more. Interesting with the prompt, I certainly didn't prompt for that type of clothing. I said woman soldier, but there you go. But as you can see, it's becoming slightly clearer, the image, but still having a little bit of that horror vibe. So effectively doing that has allowed the two to play more nicely together. Now, what's also present in this node, and it wasn't present in the earlier version, is that you can actually, there's two new features here. You can select a strength schedule. So you could say, well, for this particular LoRa, I want you to start off high strength and say cut low. So what that means, it starts high during the generation and then becomes low strength later in the generation. So what this means, if I zoom in on this, the 0 represents the beginning of the generation, a full strength. 0.3 of the way into the generation, full strength. 0.35% of the way into the generation, 0.2 strength. And it tweens between the values, allowing, so if I actually hit Q prompt now, we'll probably find there's definitely a lot less of the horror vibe because at 0.35 it reduces in strength drastically, but it will still have an influence. Now you could even put at the start, you could have chosen 1.3 or 1.5 and have a really strong influence for our power of the LoRa at the start. So yeah, it got a little bit clearer there. Now I'm going to manually edit this here, and I'm going to put, so at the beginning of the LoRa, I'm going to make you 1.5, and I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to have it go down to 0.1 at 0.35 of the way through, and it's going to remain, it's going to go down to 0 by the end. I'm going to click OK on that, and Q prompt. I note that when you're doing, by the way, the strength scheduling, it does, the generations are slightly slower. Um, the back end reason why, I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely because it's having to do more work, but I haven't actually investigated why exactly it's slower. If it is something I can improve down the line, I certainly will. But I remember with doing that kind of scheduling um, in other platforms like Automatic, there was a plugin which allowed you to do something similar with SDXL, that it had a speed penalty as well. Yeah, so look how different that made that image, quite drastic. So you can really change how LoRa behaves quite significantly. Now, the next thing to show you is you can save the LoRa. So say you have a given LoRa, maybe one that's overtrained, and you dial it back and you get, okay, it gives it nicer results. Not with the strength scheduling, but by adjusting the different layers. You can then save your adjusted LoRa, for instance, by making it more compatible with faces. Like you could bring these down even further, for instance, so there's less facial influence in the LoRa. And then you paste in your path of where you want to save it. Could be your ComfyUI Loras directory. Make sure this is untrue. If you give it no file name, it puts a timestamp. If you do put a file name in, it still puts a timestamp just at the end of the file name. And then you hit Q prompt and that LoRa is saved. So the next thing to show you is this. So this is a simple LoRa loader which has the scheduling, but it's got one little nice feature. I have pick a schedule here. I can actually just pass an inverted schedule or the same schedule, but I'm passing an inverted one here, which basically means that what actually ends up happening, while this one is peak middle, this one will be dip middle. And it allows you to crossfade to LoRa's. Now, there's that one from this seed. I'm just going to advance one seed and generate this image again and see what we get. Uh, 22%. We're getting there. You can, by the way, while it's doing that, you can pass the same schedule, I think I mentioned. As you'll see, these nodes do require the conditioning, but they're using the conditioning hooks in ComfyUI to do this. So it's that's why they require the actual conditioning rather than just clip being passed to them. Yeah, that's pretty freaking cool, actually. So these can be used just dropped into any workflow, and they'll work with any architecture that Comfy supports. Now, the next thing to show you is an image of the day node. So there are lots of services online where you can receive an image of a day. I've got these just plugged in at 0.70 denoise with a little prompt, cyberpunk dog. So this is a random dog. And if I hit generate, it gives me that. And if I go to, this is interesting, lorem pixum, and I can actually type an aspect ratio or whatever, type a resolution, and I might as well leave my, whatever the image is, I've no idea what it's going to be. I'm actually going to take the word dog out because it probably isn't going to be a dog. It's going to write cyberpunk theme. What's the word? Cyberpunk theme. Police station. I have no idea what the image is going to be, so this may make no sense. Yeah, definitely makes no sense, but we'll see. So it's pulled in, but look, it's pulled in the resolution that I actually typed. I guess what they're doing is actually cropping their pre-existing images in real time at the API endpoint. But we shall see when the key sampler resolves. Well, it's actually, we should get it any moment by the looks of it. So we're on BAE decode. Yeah, so we've got the color of it, but I'm at 0.70 denoise, so you can see that it's totally changed the image. But what is nice is that, I've got the color across. So it shows actually, in a way, you find a color tone that you like, it can be in a way quite useful at a high denoise. But I've also got Bing Daily, Wikipedia picture of the day, random dog, random cat, NASA APOD, astronomy picture of the day, Unsplash and Pexels. The 3 APIs for those are free APIs. Once you paste in the key, they get saved to your the nodes folder. So it will cache that for you. and that can be quite useful. The next thing I want to show you, this is a little plugin which takes whatever's in your clipboard and makes it available in ComfyUI. It's called Clippy Reloaded. Those of you, there are some people who might guess what that's from, and I'm going to grab another image from my desktop. Yeah, I was going to hit Control C, another image from my desktop, and I'm going to hit Q prompt. Boom. And it gives some snarky comments a bit like Clippy does. Some of them get quite dark. I apologize. Maybe I was just probably my mood when I was making it, but there you go. So it's quite a nice little node, that actually, and it can be great for just finding inspiration from a random place, you know. So this here is something that I am quite pleased with. And it's not something that I kind of expected to do. It was more something that I had an idea when I was doing the Lora nodes. This is a base model tweaker. Now, this can allow you to tweak the base model, but allows you to save a new base model and to create and save presets. So it's not for the faint of heart, this, and my mileage has varied massively between, like, SDXL is quite interesting to play with it, as is Flux. I've been focused quite a lot on Z-Image recently. It's designed to work with all of them. I've done most of my testing with Z-Image because really that's what most people are using at the moment, and I will not be able to pick this up much over Christmas. But if I, for instance, I've noticed that if I bump up these couple of layers, it can increase the sharpness quite a bit. So I'm keeping the same seed that generated this image. And I'm going to click zoom. Let's just see what happens. We're nearly there. BAE decode. Yes, a little sharper. It's also changed the ethnicity slightly, interestingly enough. Um, but it's quite hard to predict. But the thing I find most useful for, if you have a generation that has almost worked, maybe you've ended up with an extra wing mirror in a car or an extra finger in a hand, it can be quite interesting. So if I actually, to give you an example, this layer 20, so if you see here, I found layer 20 for layer 19 and 20, little changes to this specifically make very minimal changes to an image. Like if you have, for instance, I remember one image I was playing with the other day where there was an axe. Well, that's actually done significant. Let me go back to all the defaults, because I was doing that with the lots of changes in other parts. So let's go back to this. Okay, so if I go to 20 now and I do 1.05, yeah, it's a little change. If I go, like, for instance, go back the other way, 0.95. So it's keeping the composition very, very similar, but it's like it's even closer than two different seeds would be, you know. And I know Z-Image in particular is well known for not having a huge variation between seeds. Well, there's even less variation in some ways, so it can be useful for effectively exploring a given seed and maybe fixing a bizarre thing that's happened with an extra finger or an extra wing mirror on the car, for instance. But really, that is yeah. And just so you can see, you can save the base model. um, it's important with this one that you put the source model path in. Now, the reason for that is that the source model path is used to grab the original metadata from the source model and save it into the new model that's saved, so that it's still recognized by the diffusion loaders. It works with checkpoints as well. You can see here and save file name, save path, and obviously a toggle which defaults to off because obviously it's a big file. Check your Comfy console if you think because it might take 40 seconds to save or a minute depending on your system. But hopefully you found this interesting. I do have a Buy Me Coffee link, which you'll find in the YouTube video that you're watching this on, and also in the notes. Massively appreciate it if you do find it useful and you want to throw a couple of pennies my way. That'd be fantastic, because not working that much at the moment because of a situation with my family member's health. But literally no stress. At the end of the day, this stuff is free, and I want whoever uses it to just enjoy using it and hopefully find it useful. But for now, that's me signing off. Merry Christmas and Merry Holidays, whichever it is to you, and hopefully see you soon.